Hey there, I'm Ryan. I'm here with my brother Daniel. This is Rolls in the Family. This is our fourth installment in our countdown of our favorite board games of all time. We're going to be talking about our number 20 to our number 11 today. And we also have a contest going with this. And each video we've posted, you've had an opportunity to get an entry in this contest. This is your the last video to be able to get an entry into the contest. There's a Google form in the description below where you just need to enter that with the secret word for the video, which for today it is, do you know what it is, Daniel?
Race.
It's race. Race because Race for the Galaxy happens to be our most played game of all time by number of plays. Fun fact.
Yeah, talked about that in the last video.
If you enter Race in the form, you can get an entry in this video. And in fact, you could go back to the other three videos and watch those and enter to get the entries from those videos. Up until we pick, which is going to be, well, look at the Google form. It says in there when we're going to do it. But a little while after this video is posted, we are going to actually pick the winners, which are going to be then announced in the final video, our 10 to 1. We will be announcing three winners who we'll get in contact with them shortly after that. They'll get to pick. It could be you. You could get to pick any game from our top 50 lists.
To
be your own.
Some restrictions may apply.
Some restrictions. Daniel cannot enter.
Daniel can't win.
Yes.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about a lot of really good games here today. And we have links to all of them in the description below. You can check them out for yourself. Maybe we'll sell you on them, because we're getting into ones that we really enjoy.
Really like.
So Daniel, tell me about your number 20.
My number 20 goes to a game that is the most accessible game, or one of the most accessible games that I have. Well, I don't know if that's true, but one of the most enjoyable games that I have, and that goes to the Quacks of Quedlinburg. Ryan and I have Ryan has all the expansion stuff for the Quacks of Quedlinburg.
I think so. The Herb Witches and the Alchemists are kind of the two big.
Okay, and I have most of it, but what I love about Quack, it's the enjoyment of pulling things out of these ingredients out of your bag and playing them. It's a push your luck. I'll warn you, if you're interested in Quacks, you're gonna have to buy the Geek chip upgrade set.
It's gonna be hard to watch our review and not just feel like you want these nice pieces.
But it's so worth. If you like the game, it's a must buy. It actually is an upgrade that makes the game that much better, because you're every turn you're just all the time pulling chips out of a bag, and it feels amazing. A little disclaimer with that. But Quacks of Quedlinburg, it's pretty simple to teach in terms of the whole game is just you keep doing the same round structure over and over again. So kind of what I love about it when teaching is you play through a round, or I kind of explain, this is what you do on a turn. Then I'll, as the person running the game, kind of walk you through the end of round stuff. And that's the whole game. And then really the biggest thing for people to learn is kind of just getting the feel for what the different ingredients do. And that's the thing I love in this game is the randomized ingredients. Ryan and I love variability, and that moment when I usually will actually wait till after I've played a game with someone, the first game, and then I say, well, you liked that. Well, guess what? These ingredients aren't the same every time. They're randomized, and usually the reaction is like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. So much variability. It's just the central mechanic of pulling chips and push your luck is so much fun. The events add excitement. Even when you're in last, it's got one of the best catch-up mechanisms with these rat tails, where when you're falling behind, you actually get a benefit to help you catch up. And that's brilliant for the type of game it is. It all just comes together in one of the most well-received games in my collection, and one that's is why it's it's so high on my list, is the combination of my enjoyment and just how well it has gone over in so many situations. There you go. 20 is Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Very nice. Quacks at 20, which is 60 spots higher than if you didn't have the upgraded chips.
Yes. It would like, that is a great question. How much are the chips helping?
Yes.
Oh man, yeah.
They're a great upgrade for sure. Well, you just talked about a game that I had in my last segment. My number 20 is a game you had in your last segment. And this is a game I've played a ton, really a lot. And it just, you mentioned it's kind of your favorite as far as a more traditional card game. And I totally agree. This is my go-to, and that is Tichu. Such
top 20.
Top 20.
Look at that.
I've played Tichu, I think, close to 100 times now. There was a phase when I was, especially during college, and we had a group that very often after, the
if you have the
day,
same group, it's really great.
We'd play, it's a really good game with a consistent group because you all kind of learn the game. The fact that it's a partnership game is so many interesting things stem out of that part of the game of how you work with your partner, but you don't have perfect communication. Does my partner have the dragon, which very much affects how I play my aces? At the beginning of a hand, I have the dragon. Is it worth me passing it just so we both know where it is? There's just so many things I love with the partnership play. I love the core mechanism of somebody leads something and everybody has to lead the same type. So if it was singles, you have to stay with singles climbing up. But if you had a full house, you have to play a better full house. And part of what makes that so interesting is it means that any card in your hand kind of has multiple ways it could be played. I could have this card that's part of a full house, but like, do I play it as part of the full house or do I play it as part of this? Or I have 2 kings. A double king is an extremely strong pair, but I could also play it as single kings, singles, or maybe maybe it's part of a straight. And so every hand you get is kind of this puzzle of how you're going to play it. I love the way the scoring works in the game, how there's the excitement of like you can get double victory. If me and my partner can go out before either other player, it just ends and we win 200-0. We don't even score the round. And so there's always kind of the chance of that. But then you also have the betting of Tichu on top of it. I can call Tichu and bet 100 points that I'm going to go out first, but now everybody knows that. My partner knows that to try to support me. And I mean, one of the 4 people has to go out first. So you don't need the most amazing hand in the world. You just need to think like, do I have, the best out of the people here? So I've had so many good experiences with it. I love as the score goes up and you're getting close to 1,000, especially games that teach you where both teams are getting close to 1,000. That feeling going into those final rounds. Intense. Yeah, it's so like just such a great tension. And I absolutely love it. It's not the easiest one, honestly, to introduce people to.
Yeah, it takes a little bit.
And, you want to find people that maybe have a history with liking these types of traditional card games. But man, is it a game that I have not gotten tired of and want to just continue playing.
Right.
And so it makes my top 20 at number 20. That's down 3 from last year. It was my 17. So right around the same area. It's been a pretty consistent one for me.
Did you get to play it this last year?
I have played it several times this last year, I think.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
4 games of it in the last year.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty good. Nice. Awesome. Okay. Coming in, my number 19 is a game that it's stayed fairly steady from previous year. Just got the expansion to it. A game that you own. Played the expansion, your version with the expansion. Don't think I've actually played it with the expansion with my version yet. Maybe once. I can't remember. But that's going to go to Underwater Cities.
Okay.
This one's
hard to guess what game you're saying with these like really obscure conditions.
I know.
Played my version, but haven't played you.
Yeah, this is a horrible clue. But Underwater Cities, I think I initially didn't think it was going to be much in terms of, there just didn't seem like it was going to be that interesting with kind of the just what it was doing. But I just find the combination of like you're constantly, getting resources and trying to figure out the best way to use them. But the central action decision that you have of those, it's kind of
'cause you've got 3 cards and you've got only got 3 cards in your hand.
Yeah.
And trying to match.
Because when they match, you're able, because when you match the colors, you can do, because if you don't match the colors right, you can't do the card.
You don't get to do the card, you just discard it. So you're trying to pretty much always match the color.
That's pretty bad. So I love in games where you're put in that tension of like of trying to like, what is the most efficient way I can do an action out here while doing something from my hand. And that's like that's every turn you're constantly working through that decision. And I find there's just with the expansion added a lot of really fun stuff to it. I like I don't know if they call him the personal assistant or the whatever person, but that adds some. I love anything that adds variability into the game. Did that add new boards as well, right?
The big triple layered boards and has different versions.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
It's like a mega expansion of
stuff. It's an expensive expansion.
Yeah.
But just, in terms of it's not, I guess, do you call that a worker placement? No.
It essentially is, because you're blocking the spots. Yeah.
But that piece doesn't feel like a worker to me. It's like a rectangle or something.
Yeah.
So I guess that is a worker placement. But we love when games put us in tension of like, okay, how do I most efficiently do this? Given my options, sometimes maybe I need to do that action and things are getting blocked quick. I mean, there's not a ton of actions and everyone's taking them and stuff. I have had a lot of good experiences with Underwater Cities, and one that I think my wife loves it. It plays well 2-player, so for me personally that is really great, and one that I'm going to be interested to see where it goes, because I still haven't played it that much, and so I'm looking forward to see kind of going forward where it'll be. But there you go, my number 19, Underwater Cities.
Very nice. I'll forever remember Underwater Cities as the game I bought right before COVID started. And then I didn't get to play it. Yeah, that's how I'll remember it.
That's too bad.
It's like, oh well. Okay, my number 19 is a game. You talked about how, I think a couple times on this list, how, it's a combination of how much we really enjoy a game, but also like the situations it fits and how it allows us to have fun with other people and like just, and that plays a part in the rating. I think this game, more than anything on my list, is elevated because of that second piece for me. I have just had so much success playing this game with such a wide range of groups, ranging from 2-player with my wife, who's not a huge gamer in general, to then playing with my more gamer groups and having a lot of fun with it. It certainly helps that I have a ridiculous amount of content, and we've talked about how we like variable setup, and I have
Ryan will endless pay for
well, endless well to draw from. This is the cooperative game Marvel United.
Yeah.
And it's a simple cooperative game. Like, in the range of cooperative games, it is light. And it's, if you're expecting the wrong thing, you're going to maybe feel like it's a little too light.
Yeah.
That said, I've played a lot of Marvel United at this point. Love mixing up all the different heroes, different villains. It really does shake up the game and keep it fresh to throw these different things in the different locations. But I will say, for such a simple game, it is amazing how many times we've had situations that are like an interesting puzzle to solve of how we're going to approach giving us a chance to bring down the boss or do a certain thing, or times that we felt clever. It's more than I would have expected given the simplicity of the rule set. It has such a great core mechanism, like that core mechanism of I play a card and I get the actions on my card and the actions from the previous player's card, is such a just organic cooperation, because every action I take, it's like, okay, is this also helping you? Like, would it help you more if I did this or this? And just weighing that. So I love how that kind of like gets the team working together. I love the theme. Like, if I'm going to have a light cooperative game in my collection that I can play with, just about everybody, it's nice to have a theme that appeals to a lot of people, and it's fun for them to get to play heroes that they know, whether it's from the movies or the comics.
Yeah.
And so I've had so much fun with it. We this last year played the Infinity Gauntlet, like Thanos campaign, over a few games with kind of more my gaming group. And that was just such a good time. Like, I love a game that's simple and short enough that I can really use all this variety. Like, I have so much for it. I have all of the first season and the X-Men season, like, gameplay, which it's ridiculous. It's a little over the top.
It is ridiculous, Ryan. We've talked about this before. I've had multiple interventions with Ryan about this.
I've played a lot of it already, and I love that every time I go back to play it, I'm able to pull out heroes I've never played with before, villains I haven't, and I just see it being a game that is going to have a lot of longevity in my collection because of that. So very high on this list, It's even up 4 spots from the previous year. But Marvel
United. Yeah, Marvel United. I mean, so it didn't make my list. But it makes sense why for several reasons. One, I just have the core box, and I mean, really having that much content really does elevate it a ton. And so also Ryan knows I'm just not as big into the Marvel universe as Ryan is,
which I wouldn't say I'm big into it, but I definitely know more about it than you do.
Know stuff.
I've seen a lot of the movies.
I have not seen most of them.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help either, but I agree that for it is a light game, and that's maybe the one place where someone might be a little put off is it's like, oh wow, all this stuff, but really at the core it is a lighter game. But yeah, for you, I mean that it works for such a wide range, and
plays in usually half hour or less.
Half hour. Yeah, that's awesome. It's been cool. I know you had a lot of hopes for that one when you back that much, man, I hope.
Yeah. Which I was fortunate that at the time I was back in the Kickstarter, I was able to first buy the base game and try it.
So you kind of knew that.
I felt pretty informed.
Your wife liked it and stuff. Yeah, that's good. Nice. My number 18 is kind of a weird one because 18 is very high, and yet I no longer own it, but there's a reason for it. And Ryan now does own it, and that's going to go to Ark Nova. This is this is going to be a sad one for me to talk about because I obviously really love Ark Nova. I think it's fantastic. I think it does such a awesome job of, you have the personal player board with you're kind of building a zoo in front of you. I think that's so cool with the different shapes and kind of trying to optimize this zoo in front of you. It's kind of like, some of our favorite games like Terraforming Mars. You're just getting tons of cards of, there's 3 different types. They've got kind of animals that you can play to fill the things in your zoo, which is a whole fun mechanic. It's got what's the sponsors? There we go. Yeah, sponsors.
And conservation projects.
And then conservation projects are kind of the 3 different types. And so, but it's one of those games that you have all these different things you're trying to kind of piece together. But I remember it is one where you do something and it unlocks that you get this thing, and then and that things very much combo off each other a lot in it. I just think it all comes together so well,
and it's all driven by that great card mechanism of just
it's one of the most simple mechanics in terms of you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the 5 cards, and when you pick a card, it goes to the left and the rest of the cards slide down, and they get more powerful the more to the right they go. So simple. It's anyone could have thought of that. It just works so well. It's so
Which
interesting.
It isn't Ark Nova's idea. There's games that have used it before.
Well, I know people have said this is a game that isn't super original. It takes a lot of different things from other games, but I think brings it together so well. And that's a mechanic that I enjoy so much. And because every turn you're not just thinking about the current turn, you're thinking about how do I set up the next turn and the next turn, because how stuff is going to slide. You can see how it's all going to work out. So I'm happy that I was so the reason I don't own it, I don't think I ever said that, is my wife really did not like this one. I can't really pinpoint why, which was too bad because I loved it and I was really hopeful for this one, but ended up passing my copy along to Ryan. So whenever I'm visiting, I'll still get a chance to play. But hard to own something like that long when the main person I play games with doesn't like it anymore. But I still very much love it. Ark Nova.
Very nice. It is one I am happy to have in my collection.
You're welcome.
I'll probably end up talking more about it at a later date.
Really?
Maybe, unless it missed my top 50. Who knows?
Yeah.
My 18, I have not played recently. It's been a long time. And it's a hard one to get to the table, so it's understandable. It's 2-player only. It takes 4 hours to play. You need the right person. You need the right day. This is War of the Ring. War of the Ring is the definitive Lord of the Rings experience. If you want to basically play the movies or the books, that story in its most epic form on the tabletop, that is what War of the Ring does for you, with one side taking the Fellowship starting in Rivendell and trying to move towards Mordor while the other player controls Sauron's forces. It's such a thematic game. Like, if you love that theme and that lore, it is so fun to see kind of this alternate history or alternate version of the story, because, like, you know, remember we had a game where it was like, oh, Legolas and Boromir peeled off to go stay in this other area and protect it there. Like, obviously that isn't what actually happens, but it's so fun to see it kind of unfold that way. But I love that it's backed by such strong, because that was honestly the reason I didn't get it for so long. It was always on my radar, I was like, I feel like it's so high because the theme is so beloved, but I wasn't so sure about the mechanisms. Yeah. But I am really impressed by the mechanisms, especially for a game that originally came out in like 2004, which is kind of before a lot of modern board game design. A lot of games kind of pushed it forward. But it's just got great dice-driven actions, the way the events work with, like, needing certain conditions. Like, it always makes sense how the events are working. It's just a great epic experience. And for someone who loves Lord of the Rings, I love having that in my collection as something that I can pull out and have. And I need to get it to the table. Like, I need to be intentional about scheduling a day. I've even got people in my life
we gotta learn it again.
Yeah. I've got people that I know would like it, so it's like I really just gotta do it. But it's the type of one you schedule a day, you throw on the Lord of the Rings Spotify playlist in the background.
You get in your costumes, and here we go.
No, actually, the last person I played with is a friend of both of ours that actually has the, like, Aragorn sword or whatever.
Oh my gosh!
And I was like, you should have brought it.
Yes, that would have been great.
But yeah, it's a game. It's sliding a bit just because I haven't played it, right? Like, it's hard to remember exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it didn't even... So it's not on my list because I think I've played it. Did I just play it once?
Once, right? A long time ago.
And it's so sad because that experience was incredible. And I'm actually speaking as someone who's not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I'm familiar with the stuff, but I'm not, like, super into the lore.
Yeah.
And so to speak to just the mechanics... incredible. Now, if you are also into the story, I mean, this is just like this is perfect for you. If you love deep strategy mechanics and you love Lord of the Rings, this is your game right here. So I would it is up there for me of, like, games that I really would love to play again, because, man, our last game of it was so much fun.
I remember because I was Frodo got it to the
got him
to Mount Doom,
and then he
succumbed to corruption, and
on the edge,
which is almost what happens. Almost in the real story.
Happened. Yeah, the very small change from the movie. Yeah, but wonderful stuff.
Sauron
awesome.
Moves on. Cool.
Okay, my number 17. One of the few games that I owned first, and Ryan ended up getting later. Dropped 10 spots. Kind of interesting, actually.
Yeah, if this is what I think it is, it's a little lower than I would have expected.
But that is going to go to Great Western Trail.
Wow.
I mean, top 20, so I very much...
it's still good. I just would have expected it to be higher for you.
Very much love Great Western Trail. I think it's so... What it gives in kind of the pacing and, the fact that it's a kind of a secular game, is that what you would say? Or where
it's like a big rondel.
You're not just going from start to finish. You're running in a loop where you're constantly kind of moving along this path to get to Kansas City. When you get to Kansas City, you score your cattle in your hand. So it's also kind of a deck builder as well. You're trying to build up kind of the cattle in your deck. But I think the most interesting thing about this game is figuring out the pace that you need to go at, because any turn you can go anywhere from, I think at the beginning of the game it's like 1 to 3 spaces. You can end up upgrading your movement to go faster, but you're always tempted to go slow and like stop at all the different spaces to improve, get more money, get more, buy this, buy that. But if you're going too slow and you're not actually getting, I mean, that's decreasing how many times you're going to get to Kansas City in the game. And Kansas City is like a huge thing with how you're, going to the cities, and that's huge for getting discs off your board and upgrading your board. Now, if you go too fast and your deck isn't good enough, then you go to Kansas City and you can't go to the same city twice, and now you're having to go back to Kansas City and lose points. And so figuring out that balance in there, and even reading your opponent, how fast is my opponent going? Do I need to kind of maybe speed up to keep up with them? It is such an interesting experience, and I always have so much fun with it. And there's different strategies you can take at it, especially with like you could go all in on trying to just build the best cattle, get a bunch of the cowboys or whatever, and build the best cattle deck possible. Or the whole locomotive track. I mean, gosh, you could stop at all the stops along the way and fly on that. And there's tons of points you can get that way. And I think the one I've explored the least, honestly, is all the buildings. But I mean, those are randomized every game, and you can do that. This game is just, I think the mechanics are tight. It works so well, and it delivers, I think, a very unique experience from a lot of other games. Now, we actually tried Maracaibo, which is
we did, because you owned Great Western Trail first. Right. I just really liked it, and then Maracaibo came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like they took Great Western Trail and added in cards like a Terraforming Mars or something like that. That just sounds like a match made in heaven for me. We played it, and at least our opinion was like, I like Great Western Trail like significantly better. I think.
Better, yeah.
Maracaibo was fine, but in a world where Great Western Trail exists, after the one play, I sold it and I got Great Western Trail in the expansion.
Yeah, so that was kind of an interesting thing, but I know we both have really enjoyed our time with Great Western Trail.
Yep, I love Great Western Trail. You can go 1, 2, or 3 spaces. So despite it's such a big game, it constrains it to this like simpler decision, which I think is just a brilliant thing that a lot of games we talk about do. Underwater Cities has the same thing with like you've got 3 cards of where you can go.
Yeah, you start to see some comments about what we like here.
Yeah, Arc Nova with like which cards are in your upgraded spaces, like ideally. So it's really nice when a big game can kind of like narrow you in some good options.
Yeah, going through this whole list is actually helping me think about what games I should get in the future, because I'm starting to kind of see some themes of like, is
this really just kind of like a therapy session to help you understand?
Yeah, this is. Who's counseling the other? That's the real question.
Please comment below who you think. My number 17 is a game that I don't get to play that often. And every time I'm doing my list, that's my feeling. It's like, man, I don't get to play this that much, but I know when I do, I really enjoy it.
I like it.
And I played it with you actually within the last year, and I think that was probably my only play of it. And had a really good time. I think it's slipping a little bit down my list, but still one that I just really enjoy the mechanisms of, and that is Gaia Project.
Okay.
Now, Gaia Project is a new kind of reimagining of the Terra Mystica formula, which we had Terra Mystica, probably played it 15 or so times. I've played Terra Mystica more than I played Gaia Project. Really liked that, but really liked the direction they went with Gaia Project and some of the changes and variable setup and stuff. And I definitely would say, for my taste, Gaia Project is the stronger game. But yeah, it's just such an interesting, like, how do I expand on this map to build up my engine by uncovering more things? But it's so tight and hard, and figuring out. And it's definitely one of those games where, like, you're kind of like planning out your round of like, am I going to have enough resources to do this, this, and this? And it's like, okay, I'm going to be short on ore, so is there a way I can get up one of the bonus tokens that would give me the little bit more ore? It's definitely a game that if you realize later, like, oh, I could actually get one more of that resource, suddenly it's like, well, I got to rethink my whole turn now, because like, if I can do this extra thing, it might make sense to do this. But it's very crunchy, heavy strategy as far as strategy games. Once the variable setup is all out, there's no randomization during the game. So, it definitely plays to the strengths of kind of players that are kind of more master planners and can kind of see the whole strategy arc of the game.
That is not me.
Daniel's like, give me tactical decisions.
I am all tactical.
And it's a balance. And honestly, I probably prefer games that are a little bit more of a mix than what Gaia Project is. And maybe that's a reason it's gone down a little bit for me. But it's a lot of fun. Just the decisions you make in it. it'll be interesting to see just as I have opportunities to like, is it getting to continuing to get to the table for me?
It's a hard one to get.
But yep, still holding towards the top of my list. I guess it dropped 9. I think up to this point it had been in my top 10. Still a game I really enjoy. Gaia Project.
Nice. Coming in at number 16 here, a game that I do not own, which is too bad.
Man,
one of the here we go. I'll actually think of good clues, Ryan. Don't worry. One of the best productions of board games that we have.
I think I know.
And
this is pretty high for you.
And this is going to go to Mechs versus Minions.
You haven't played this in a while, I don't think.
No,
and I only know that because I haven't played it in a while, and you would only have played it.
I actually snuck into your house, right?
Yeah.
Played some solo. Can you play solo in this game?
I mean, I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
Probably nothing that's
I didn't know if it had a solo variant. Anyways, Mechs vs. Minions. So, if you didn't know, made by the people who made League of Legends, the video game. The guy who likes board games, decided to make a board game. It is wonderful. So, it is a cooperative game. It's actually got kind of this campaign, but I don't really want to call it that because they're just really just isolated missions. They're just isolated standalone missions, which I'm so happy because that would have like ruined the game for me. I love just standalone things. But where each of you, it's a cooperative game, has this mech, and you're going through and you're just trying to kill all these enemies and achieve whatever objective you have. But the way you're doing it is by kind of running this, a chain in front of you. And what I think the interesting thing about the game and why it's so fun is not only is kind of customizing the order, you play
programming
cards.
Row.
Yeah, you're programming row, and if you play like a second card on top of another one, it's like now the more powerful effect happens. That's all fun. That's all cool and all that. But then it takes things in board games that usually aren't fun for the player and you would not like damage. And it makes that fun as well, because damage is like you get this malfunction that gets thrown into your card row. So where now when you're running the line, whenever you get to the second spot, your guy flips 180 around. But what's then so fun is you're like, okay, I can use this. And then you're like, I'm going to flip around and then I'm going to use it to my advantage. And so you actually damage makes it harder, but also more interesting because your mech's just doing these. And sometimes
it's so funny when someone has like 4 malfunctions and they're trying to help.
Yeah, because you're just out of control. So it makes the damage one. It's a game that you get to a point where you start to feel really powerful. I mean, you have these turns where you run your line well and you just wipe out all these minions out there. And that's a really fun feeling to have that. I just find for people playing this game, I mean, so it obviously has the appeal of just looking at it. It's like, yes, I want to play that game. That looks so cool. But then once you start playing, it's just for a wide range of people, I would say that is just such a fun mechanism of running through your line. The damage is fun. There's just very few parts of this game, I feel like, that could make a play go really poorly. I mean, maybe you could just lose quickly or something like
Honestly,
that. Honestly,
probably my worst plays of it has been when we've won too easily.
Yeah, probably too easily. That would be kind of the one situation of that. So, I mean, like any game that I don't own that's this high is really on my I want to own this list. It's pricey, although I would honestly, even though I would actually say it's really good value. Even though
I mean, the reality is Riot Games, they had so much money from League of Legends, they could just price it at a point that no other publisher could price that production.
It's beautiful. It is just beautiful. And the missions are unique. They're fun. We could play any of them again. So game I really, really enjoyed. My number 16, Mechs versus Minions.
Very nice. Definitely higher than I would have expected. For you.
I think just dropped one spot. My list got a little messed up here, so I might be speaking false information, but it's on the screen. So
Dang, I'll fix it all in editing.
Well, you know what? So right before we recorded this, I moved I was like, oh, actually the game goes here, but I didn't change any of the ranking over time column, so now it's just all sorts of messed up. So
oh man,
look at what's on the screen.
Don't trust anything.
Don't trust anything I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah, Mechs vs. Minions is a great example of a game I like to have because it's a big, kind of lavish production, but an accessible game.
Yeah.
Like so many times the ones that get the big lavish productions are like these games I would only play with my heavy gamers. It's nice to be able to bring out with anybody and be like, look at.
That's kind of your interest in Foundations of Rome. So
it's true. I do have Foundations of Rome on the way. We'll see if it makes the list next year. If it delivers before that. All right. My next one has been talked about. In fact, we talked about it in this video, but not because the game was on the list, but because it was the hint for the secret word, which this is Race for the Galaxy for our contest.
Oh, that's funny. For some reason, I thought it was the Killer Bunnies clue, and I was very thrown off, but that's a different video.
yeah. Killer Bunnies coming in. Coming in hot.
You still own that?
Yes. No, this is Race for the Galaxy. And actually, wow. I think this has got the review effect a little bit of we reviewed this, and I think it just reminded me. I've gotten some plays of it, but it went up 5 spots. This game is held in my top 20, in various places. And just despite playing it over 300 times, every time I play it, it's just such a nice little quick puzzle. You feel like you do so much in so little time. And it just, to have a game like that I can play in 20 minutes or, still even a half hour or less, usually even if I'm playing with someone who hasn't played before. But I feel like I've done so many interesting things and like figured out how I built up my tableau and how I combo things together. And just with the shuffle of the cards, every time is going to be a unique play of that. Mm-hmm. I also have Roll for the Galaxy, and if those two have kind of like, I definitely feel like they are different enough to warrant having both. But I also have found Race for the Galaxy is held as my favorite. The core thing of your cards double as your money for playing cards, I just love the decisions that come out of that.
Yeah.
Like, it's so fun to have a hand of cards and be like, well, I want to play these, but that means I can't play these. Or if I want to play everything, I might have to take multiple rounds to explore to do it. And just like weighing those decisions. And then you have a hand limit of 10. So it's not like you can just like store up a ton. Yeah. It's just a great system with all the expansion stuff. I've had so many good games of it. Do not tire of it at all. And it is holding strong at my number 16 of all time.
Wow. Yeah, that says a lot about that game. Obviously it was high for me, but I mean that high for you. That's really, really cool. My number 15 is one of the few games that I don't think I could play back-to-back games of it. It's been spoken of on this video already, and that is going to go to Gaia Project. This one actually got
a... you're higher than me on Gaia Project.
I'm impressed. Or I'm just lower on you on other games than,
True.
However you want to view it. But actually it's stuck pretty, like I said, my numbers are a little off, but pretty level. we're around the same as it was last year. But I got to actually get a play of it this last year. And I wonder if you remember, but as I was playing, I was just giddy because I was
it wasn't even very far into the game. It was like the second turn and Daniel's just like making audible noises of glee.
Yeah,
that describes it pretty well.
I'm an expressive person, but it had been a long time since I'd played it, and so I was like reminded of like, oh my goodness, this is brilliant. And we used to have Terra Mystica, and this one it's just even more connected because now that whole board over there, it's not just this extra thing that you just kind of go on up on
cult track.
But it is intricately connected into everything you're doing, and everything combos off everything. And this is why, and there's no like luck after the open draw. It's all just open information. So this is why it's just an absolute brain burner. Cause you're just like, okay, if I do this, that means then I'll be able to do this. But wait, I can't do that because then I can't do this. And you're trying to figure out this order.
I forgot I have to do this by the end of this round. Otherwise I can't do this.
So it just crunches your mind. But it all connects together in such a fun way. I mean, you're constantly put in tough decisions. It's full of tough decisions. I mean, starting just with your player board, deciding, after you upgraded the trading post, which way are you going to go? Are you going to upgrade to your whatever the big thing is?
It's or are you called Stronghold. That's what it was called.
Not Stronghold, whatever the new thing is. Or are you going to go to the right and you're going to start getting those things, I'm using great descriptors. Laboratories. Yeah, but like that's a very different route. It's like, they're both so good. And yeah, it's playing it again, man, the whole system just comes together in one of the most brain burner experiences, but so much fun because everything is connected. It's tight and is just one that I wish I could play it. I wish Ryan, we could just dedicate a month and say like, okay, this month we're just going to play Gaia Project like every other day or something like that. And that
those
way
days are long gone, Daniel.
Yeah, those days are long gone. But that would be some expensive flights. So yeah, it's a game that I just wish I could learn and play more, but even just that one time, so much fun. So 15, another game I don't own, Gaia Project.
I'm glad to hear it though, because we could have picked a lot of games off the shelf that day, and we went for Gaia Project, and I think we both were very happy to get to play it again.
My wife liked it too, so we'll see. Maybe it'll be on the radar.
Okay. Yeah. My number 15 is up a spot. This is a game that I think has gone up or held on partly because I've actually been able to start playing it solo. I've mentioned that I've done a little bit more solo gaming than, I used to do none, so not the little bit that I do.
Infinitely more.
Yes. And what's fun about getting to play this game solo now is I can play it a little bit more often and explore more of the content I have for it, because I have quite a bit of content for it, because I've been in this game since the beginning. Since it came out in 2011, I bought the original edition of Lord of the Rings, the card game. Now, as evident by War of the Ring already being on my list in this segment, I am a fan of the Lord of the Rings universe and IP, so that's definitely a benefit here.
Yeah, wasn't Lord of the Rings Journeys of
Middle-earth, was down further on my list.
Yeah, down further, but so this is the third.
So 3 Lord of the Rings games make it. But this is one of Fantasy Flight's living card games where you build the decks ahead of time, but then you primarily up to this point I had played it as a 2-player cooperative game. So you each have a deck and you're questing with your heroes. You pick a quest to do. There's now a lot of campaign content for it, but you can also play just standalone quests. So a lot of different just like mix and match stuff. And I've played this a lot. This is one of my most played games of all time. And I've really enjoyed lately being able to kind of play some of the solo stuff, and I've been doing some campaign stuff solo. I haven't been playing it as much super recently, but very fun to explore it all. I talked about with Keyforge how it's so fun to be able to just grab a deck and play and not have to worry about deck building. That said, I do really enjoy deck building, like that part of the hobby. And so there are times where it's very fun to sit down with my collection of cards and be like, okay, I want to build a deck with Elrond and this, and with these spheres, and then how can I support that with cards and kind of like figure that. I enjoy that experience. And then typically I'll leave decks that are built so that I can always pull it out and play at any point in time. This is a game, this is probably one of the highest games I've had that like, Daniel, you've hardly played. We've played it a few times together, but over the years it was often other kind of friends that were my go-to for playing this game. But yeah, one I still really, really enjoy even after all these years. I love the way they're reprinting some of the content in this new format. I love that they're reprinting the Lord of the Rings arc that's actually like the Lord of the Rings story. So I glad to have it. I'm sure I'll have many games in my future. Maybe my kids will play it with me someday.
There you go. We'll start them young.
Okay.
Maybe next year, right? Put in your best board games for a 3-year-old's video.
Yeah. That video's coming up. My last one's a little of an unconventional pick.
Gaia Project. Throw it in. That's for 4-year-olds. Yeah.
Yes.
Number 14 is a new game to the list.
Is this your highest new one?
Not. I don't believe so.
Daniel doesn't know what he's looking at with this list anymore.
It's just a blank screen over here. I'm actually just making this up as I go.
You're like, I hope I don't run out of games I can think of.
Daniel, you don't even own that one. Yes, I don't believe it's the highest. It's new to my list, and I've gotten to play it several times. It's in a it's in a universe that we have several games of and have enjoyed quite a bit, and that is going to go to Cthulhu Death May Die.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, this one went over about as well as I could have hoped for in what I was looking, because I actually I used to own Mansions of Madness, which very different game, very different. I totally recognize that. But for what, you can go check our games get rid of video of why I got rid of that one. But got rid of that. Was kind of looking for something that was like, okay, I don't want something that's competing with like Elder Tor, because when I want to do Elder Tor, I'll just play Elder Tor. So I wanted something that was maybe a little shorter, but gave a kind of a similar feel. And when I was looking at the reviews of Cthulhu Death May Die, they were really positive, and it really seemed like it would be that. And I just think it absolutely nailed it. It's a really, I think one thing cool about it, especially compared to maybe an Elder Tor, is you're very much you're on a map and moving around. So it's got a very
the story is very like cohesive because you're just watching what's actually happening.
It's more of a narrative that you feel like you can visually see and you're a part of, and you're running around these rooms and stuff. So I like that element to it. And I find there's a couple huge things that are cool. First of all, the player character sheets, because they're pretty big, are so cool. And the way that you have these different powers, each one, some are overlaps between other, but each character has for sure one unique power, and you can choose to upgrade them. But how you upgrade them is actually you have an insanity track, and the more insane you go, you hit these markers that let you upgrade the tracks. So it's this really interesting tension in the game where you'll die if you go fully insane, but you also kind of need to go insane, otherwise you're not going to be powerful enough.
Yeah.
So you kind of actually almost want to be like aggressive and in fighting monsters so that your insanity goes. So you want to find that nice balance, because hopefully by the end of the game you've been able to upgrade a bunch. And the characters are all feel different and unique. I love how in a mission you just combine this. You take an ancient one, you take a mission, you combine them together, and you have a unique combination of how those two play together. And so they have a ton of content for this game, and they're all coming out with more and more. And this is just the beautiful thing, because the more you get of it, that's more ancient ones and more, you're like exponentially getting more. Yeah. Like, not only is this new content just by itself, but it's adding a new experience to every mission that you had previously to that. So I currently just have the core box, and it's been too bad. It's been kind of actually tough.
I thought you got at least, didn't you get one of the Ancient One expansions?
Yes, I got just one of the single Ancient ones I was able to snag. But I haven't been able to find the season 2. So, hey, if you're watching and you want to sell your season 2, let me know.
Reverse giveaway. Send us a game.
Yeah, reverse giveaway. If I'm the winner, I pick one of your games. But you got to play this one, and I think it just, it's streamlined, it's quick, and yet you still kind of get that taste of that exciting. It leads to the fight. I mean, gosh, when the Ancient One drops on the board and it's this massive mini. I mean, some could say the mini's excessive. It looks sweet and it fits the theme. It's like this, and he's crazy powerful, and you have to, I've had great experiences playing Cthulhu Death May Die.
Yeah, I'm very glad I got to try it. And honestly, of games in your collection that I don't have, this is probably towards the top of the list of ones that I'm like, I could see myself getting. Now, granted, it's a hard one because it's not cheap, and it's the type of game, like you said, if I got it, I would want to expand it.
Yeah.
And so it's really not cheap.
You did it with Marvel United. You can do it.
Yeah, I don't have any money left. what am I supposed to buy now? So it's one I could very well see myself owning for many of the same reasons you said. Is it kind of fills this different niche. It still feels like a big game.
Yeah.
There's certain games that pull that off of feeling bigger than like the time slot or the complexity. And I think that's something Death May Die does really well. So we'll see. I see them pop up on like Facebook Marketplace. Everyone saw, but the people always know that it's like not in print or like not available. So it's like more expensive than it would be known. I'm
right.
Like, no, that's not a deal. But
that's not a deal.
Maybe someday.
Yeah.
Very cool. My number 14 has been mentioned already. I think on your previous set of 10. So, you had it in your 20s. I have it in my 10s. The general Board Game Geek public says that it is the number 1 game of all time. This is Brass Birmingham.
That's high.
It is very high, yes. And I think we're both, a little surprised it is the number 1 on Board Game Geek.
Yeah.
That's happened since I've owned it. It really climbed up the charts. But such a strong design of just this network building game of getting your buildings out and getting them to flip by either shipping the stuff or like getting the resources used, and just the way that all the interplay is with the other players on the board. We've talked about how neither of us probably really know what we're doing in this game yet, because we've only played it a few times.
Which is why we love playing together.
And you're kind of bumbling around, but it's a very fun sandbox to be in and just look for those opportunities for clever moves or have things happen that you're just like, oh, like I didn't think about that, or the implications of like the order I did that. I think I've only played it at 3 players, and it's excellent at 3 players. I'd be interested like with 2 or 4. 4 just feels like it would be bonkers with just how much would be going on. But yeah, I love how simple like it is. It's not easy to teach, but how simple like the scoring is. It's like literally you're only going to score at 2 points in the game, the end of the canal area, end of the rail area. And when we score, it's literally what buildings do you have flipped? They all score. What links do you have? They all score for what they're next to. So it's like 2 times in the game, the same 2 things score. So it's just very clean. And I just love seeing how the game, there's just certain games that give me that feeling of watching the game unfold. And it's like, man, this is just really an interesting situation that we find ourselves in now in this game because of how everything has happened. So game, I'm actually happy I've been able to, let's see. I played it, if this is correct here.
Probably more accurate than mine, I'll say that.
Oh, 2 times in the last year. I think I was looking at the wrong column for some of the previous ones when I said plays in the last year, so probably a lot of misinformation.
Refer to the screen.
Yeah. I was like, there's no way I played it 5 times last year. But I did play it twice in this last year, which it's a game that I hadn't played a lot before that. So yeah, it's one it feels different from a lot of things I have, and so I enjoy having it in my collection. Brass Birmingham.
Good stuff, Ryan. My number 13 goes to the game that I think, if I'm just guessing on this, is the game that I haven't played in the longest, and which makes ranking very tough.
I have a guess,
but that's going to go to Millennium Blades.
Okay, I was right.
Yeah, I want to say it has been a hot minute since I've played this one, and that's why ranking is so hard, because it's like, gosh, how do you even play again? But the experiences, it's so unique in the fact that you're literally playing a game of collecting cards and buying. I love buying and selling. I mean, that's in real life, in board games.
Very few days go by that I don't get a message from Dango that he's wheeled and dealed some tech or board game.
Yeah, so it's like I get it. I just get to scratch that itch in a board game, which is so much fun. I mean, the fact that you have that much content, it's like you're always seeing new stuff. And I mean, I remember as kids, us getting excited to like open our Yu-Gi-Oh packs and see the cards. It's like, I get to do this in a board game over and over again. And then I'm like, we love building decks, and it's like, okay, and it's on real time. So you got to be okay with that. But you're like, okay, how do I do this? And then you're building like you're building a set collection as well. Like not only are you building a deck that you're going to use in the tournament, but you're also trying to build a set collection of, a different of the type of, is it like different numbers or something? I forget what it is, how you build those set collections. They all
be the same type, but all different numbers.
In a while. We've said a lot about it already, but one of the most unique experiences that we have. But every time I think it's probably I would say it's the number 1 game right now that if you ask me, like, if I could just play any game with you right now, I would want to play Millennium Blades because
it's been a while for me too. So we may need to make that happen the next time the opportunity arises.
Yeah,
I think we also both really like in that game how because there's 3 tournaments, and when you end a tournament, like you could choose to keep your deck that you did in that tournament and just try to make it a little bit better, or or you can just go, what if I just throw this deck away and build a deck around this other cool card I found?
Yeah.
And so it's fun to have that option of sometimes it's not smart. If you were trying to win, you wouldn't necessarily do that, but it is just fun to be I'm going to see if I can make a deck around this thing and make it work. And very unique game. Yeah. There's certain people that will love this game. There are certain people that will hate this game.
Yes.
I think polarizing would be
such a polarizing game. Yes.
Yes. A game that's
speaking of polarizing.
Yeah. A less polarizing game than Millennium Blades is another one that you've talked about fairly recently. I think may have been the last list.
Yeah.
But this is a game that kind of fits into that strategy games that are in that kind of 2 to 2.5 hour range, and this is just a competitive category. There's so many good games, and honestly it's not enough to be a good game in this category. If you're going to stay in my collection with these strategy games, you got to be really bringing something to the table that makes this a 9 or 10 for me, and it feels different. And this is one that when I initially researched it, I wasn't sure if it had that, but it has proven to really kind of fill a niche, not even fill a niche in my collection, but just
be good enough.
Yeah, be good enough to want to stick around. This is Underwater Cities.
Yeah.
And it's driven by, you're building up your own little underwater city network, which is always satisfying to kind of be building your own board. Though I'll say this actually, of games that you get to do that, Underwater Cities, the board itself isn't where a lot of my enjoyment is coming from. It's kind of just I'm building tunnels and cities and some little things out. It's kind of an end result.
It doesn't look super unique, really.
And it's very similar from game to game. But the core mechanisms of I have 3 cards that are among these 3 different colors, and I'm going to go to a worker placement spot of those colors to match the card so that it gets played. Just love the decisions that come out of that. Because I could have 2 red cards and a yellow card. And it's okay, I definitely want to go to a red or yellow space. A green space is going to be really inefficient.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I use my last yellow card, I could draw another red, and then I'm really going to be stuck going to red. Is it better for me to go to a red to keep my hand balanced so that my options are a little more flexible? But then it's I'm also thinking, which spots do I want to go to the most? Maybe there's a yellow or red spot because it's worker placement. So when it gets to your turn, you could take these spots. So I got to be thinking where might I get blocked? And just the way that feeds into then kind of this engine building of you're getting cards that might give you abilities. I love the interesting, there's that action type of card that has the A, that whenever you go to a worker placement spot that has that A, you get to trigger one of your A abilities. So it's almost you're customizing your options for those worker placement spots.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has that fun rule with it that you're limited to 4 of them. But when you play an additional one, you discard an existing one and it activates it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those things that's fun to do. You can kind of turn those to get extra actions. It all comes together just really nicely. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't have these wow mechanisms in it for me.
Right.
But it's just really solid. And the way the big New Discoveries expansion kind of flushes it out with more cards and more variability. It's stuck pretty high on my list. It dropped 2 spots, but it's right up there as one of my kind of favorites in what honestly is my favorite genre of games. As you'll see as this list goes on, this kind of style of game tends to be my favorite.
Awesome. My number 12 is a game that is 2-player only. It is very long. It is very epic. It is very fun. And this is Twilight Struggle. Ryan and I actually recently did a review on Twilight Struggle, which didn't get too much of the review bump. Only went up 2 spots. But at this level, even moving 2 spots, I feel
the fact that it went up with new games coming
on. But whenever it helps that I've gotten to the point where now whenever we play, we're pretty comparable to each other. Twilight Struggle is just the blend of obviously there's the historical element to it, which is very interesting, of all the cards, of all being events in the game. But then you add in these scoring cards. And so now you have, especially at the start of the game, all you're worried about is the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. And so, but those are shuffled into the deck. And ultimately, scoring cards, it's tug of war to win the game. It's first person to 20 points, and a lot of those points come from scoring cards, but you don't know when they're going to come up. And so each of you gets dealt a hand of cards, and you're like, okay, who does he have a scoring card? Do I have any scoring cards? But then the rest of your cards are all events, and some of the events are US events, some of them are USSR events. And whenever you play an event, if it's your own event for your side, you have to either use the operations points or do the event. But if you play the opponent's event, you get the operation points, but you have to trigger the event, and it's something that helps them. So you're constantly in this like tension of what's the best way to play what I've been given here? Because sometimes, you get dealt a phenomenal hand of the perfect scoring card, a bunch of your events, and you feel great and all that. But you can also get dealt a hand that just feels terrible. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck with a bunch of Ryan's events. But that's powerful because you control when those get played. So you get to mitigate damage that maybe would have been a lot worse if your opponent had it. There's so much into this game where it starts centralized, and then as you get to the mid and late war, it expands across the globe. I mean, there's so much you're managing. There's so many mind games of trying to read where your opponent's going to see, are they playing in Asia because they have a scoring card there, or are they just throwing finding sneaky ways of how you can flip things and use events to do things. We talk about all this in our review, our glowing review for Twilight Struggle. It's truly a masterpiece of a game in terms of mechanics, theme, how it brings it all together. And it's been one that we've both said I don't think we would have owned it if not for it being the number one game on Board Game Geek at one point. And we're like, well, you got to try it, right? And I'm so glad we did, because it's just been an absolute joy ever since.
Yep. Yeah, good stuff. I love how you're forced to play your opponent's events if you're gonna do it.
Right.
I love the decision of you can either do the ops points before or after the event.
Yeah.
So there's times where it's like, you do the event first, and then I'll use my ops points to clean up whatever.
Mitigate the damage.
And then there's sometimes it's like, I'm doing the ops points first to make it so that this event doesn't do something catastrophic.
Right.
I kind of prep for it. Yeah, so many interesting decisions. We have to cut ourselves off. So we'll reference the review.
Yeah, go check out the review if you want to hear us wax on Twilight Struggle.
Yes. Very nice. My number 12 is probably going to shock you that it's this high.
Gosh, I'm scared.
I think it's going to shock you that it's this high. But this is currently and you're going to know it immediately once I say my clue. This is currently my favorite solo game. And it is actually a solo only game. And this is Final Girl. Now, Final Girl is a game I got kind of after I had first bumped into doing some solo gaming. Lord of the Rings, the card game, was one I already had that I started doing. And kind of was like, you know what? This is something that it would be nice to have some really strong things in my collection that fill this niche now that I kind of find that I enjoy doing it every once in a while. And so I backed Final Girl because it looked like the type of game that, weaned into some of what I like about games like, Eldritch Horror, some of these Ghost Stories or Last Bastion, kind of cooperative puzzles with some dice rolling and luck, but strong theme and story, but in a much shorter, quick and play. And I have to say, it has knocked it out of the park as far as my enjoyment of it. Wow. Since getting all the content. It is a dream in terms of variable setup and combinations, because every set comes with a location and it comes with a killer, and you can mix and match any of those. So I have quite a bit of content for it, so I can just keep trying new combinations. And it's meaningful differences when you use a different location and a different killer, because the locations come with their unique deck of items, like all the items that make sense to be at that location. It comes with the unique deck of events that like, and a lot of times these events are like completely change the feel of a game. And you always draw one event at the beginning of the game. But then more can come throughout the game. But you might have an event that like brings out this like a boat or something. And suddenly it's like, this whole game on this map feels different because there's this boat in the game. Or like there's one where you get your boyfriend is with you, and like if he gets killed, you like actually like if he's in your space and you get killed, you actually get like powered up because you're like avenging him or something. I don't know. There's like all these like funny thematic things tied into it. And I just have absolutely loved that I can play it in probably an average of about 20 minutes to play a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, I get such a strong narrative thing that happened with so many like interesting little decision points of where to push my luck. And it's you feel like it's against the odds. And there's so many times I've had those amazing moments where I thought there was no way and I made it happen. And the fact that I can get that in that short amount of time, that every time I play it, I can do it with all these different like variables that set up. And I'm not relying on, needing to schedule a game night to get that experience. If I have a little bit of time at the end of an evening, I can pull it out and get a play of it. I have played it in the last year that I've had it. So this is also my second highest new game to the list. But I've played it 28 times so far in less than a year. And yeah, I still am itching to play it more and explore more of the combinations. I know season 3 is going to drop here later this year on Kickstarter or whatever platform. I'm probably not going to be able to control myself because it's one of those games where every new thing you get exponentially expands the combinations you can play. We'll see. Ryan's but for now, Final Girl has been absolutely fantastic.
Wow.
Not for everybody. Got to be okay with swingy random games, but lots of memorable moments. My number 12.
I knew you liked it, but my gosh, that is...
I like it enough that I like want sometime to teach it to you and watch you play.
I feel like, I just don't know if I would like long-term would play solo board
games. I don't think you would.
I'm too social. I actually like people. But
I have good reasons to avoid people.
See, Ryan has to play with other people to play these games he like. I play board games because I like people. See, that's the difference between us, right, Ryan?
Yeah, the people are just collateral in my board gaming obsession.
Nice. Okay, well, right. my number 11.
Sad 11. It's always the one that just missed the top 10.
Yep. Well,
one out for number 11.
You're gonna be so this one I think was new last year. It like just got on, but it jumped 17 spots up to 11. You're not gonna be surprised when you might be surprised how high it went. This game was probably the biggest gap between Ryan because Ryan owned it first. Ryan teaching it to like me, seeing the box, seeing the game, my thoughts of what I was going to think about this game. And when I came out of that game, where I ended up. And ever since, it has just continued. My wife loves it. And that is Lorenzo El Magnifico coming in at 11. That is insane. Because you look at the box and my gosh, that just does not inspire much.
You can probably see it on screen right now. Look at that.
That does not inspire much. This is just everything we want in a worker placement game. It is tight. It has just such fun engine building. Like you really just feel throughout the game. You're like, you're building these. You got the player board in front of you, and you can build those two different rows that are these engines that you're building up, and the worker placement is so interesting with the different towers because first of all, the cards are sliding down, so you're trying to look for where's good value because you have to play more. You have to play a higher die number to get the higher up ones. And that's the whole kind of interesting thing about it is that you roll those dice at the beginning of the round, and that's what everybody's workers are valued at for the round. And I love that because it's not like, oh, I got unlucky. Instead, it's everyone has to deal with this. Either we rolled all 6s, oh my gosh, we're just running wild, or are you kidding me? We have a 1-2-1, like, and suddenly that changes the perspective of the round for everyone, and everything's tighter, and it's like, okay, well, what am I gonna do now? And so everyone's competing for these towers, because if you play in a tower that either you or someone else is already at, you got to pay money to go there again. So the worker placement is so tight with it. Tight worker placement with an engine building. It is, I have been blown away. And then you add in that, we have the big box that includes the expansions. So now you pick one of these, at the start of the game, these, is it a family or something like that? That the house the house is a Renaissance expansion, which I think was
some might say
your favorite
expansion of all time.
Yeah, because it just adds at the start of the game, you're just like, oh my gosh, I get this incredible unique ability that is it's fun for the entire game. All that together, oh my goodness, Lorenzo! It is the game that it's like, how is it up here? Like, I like Euro games and all that, and I've got them up here, but just usually you need a really strong theme or something like I love good theme, and this really just doesn't have it. But the mechanics are glorious.
You can get excommunicated in this game. There's not.
You can get excommunicated. That's always kind of fun. So
yeah. I mean, it is amazing because year after year, so many dry Euro games get released, like these dry themes, and it's like they look, I see reviews from it, it's like, oh, it looks like it has interesting mechanisms, but so many come out year over year. It's like, how is one going to stand out from the crowd to be one that's like, that's one that I'm going to own? And honestly, Lorenzo kind of passed by. It wasn't until a little bit later that I really kind of came back on it and was like, man, I do think this could be a really good one. Mm-hmm. But it does elevate, it really earns separating itself from the crowd.
Nice. Okay, Ryan, bring us home.
My 11's a similar type of game as far as kind of a dry theme, kind of similar time to play. I like this one a lot more than you do.
Oh my!
A lot more than most people do.
Okay, well, I think I know what this is.
It was my 10 last year, so it's just dropped out. It's one that I fear I'm not going to get to play as much as how much I love it, just because I don't think as many people around me are quite as high on it as I am. But I absolutely love me some Troyes. It is a very, very interesting game. And talk about games that find a way to separate themselves from kind of the crowd of, these kind of 90-minute Euro games. Troyes has got some fascinating things going on. It's driven by this core dice mechanism where you're rolling based on where you currently have influence. You can, by getting influence, actually change the composition of the dice you're rolling. But when you roll them, they're not just your dice. They're available to be influenced by other players at the table. Can buy your dice by paying you money, which sometimes you don't mind because you're getting money, but sometimes you're like, man, I really, really wanted to use that die. And so as you go around the table taking turns, it's so interesting to think about, what dice do I need to be using now? And which ones are most likely to get taken, and where are my best opportunities? So that core thing is just a very interesting puzzle. But then that feeds into this very variable thing every game with these activity cards, where you have 3 in each of the 3 areas that are always going to be different every game, where you can go get influence that you can then use that special action spot. And these action spots are always send a group of dice of that color and then activate it a certain amount of times. And so if it activates every 4 pips on the die, and I can go there with 16 worth, which is hard to do, but possible with some of the manipulation option you have, I can trigger it off 4 times, which, depending on what these abilities do, could just be hugely powerful. So I think probably more than any other game I can think of, Troyes allows me to set up these almost game-breaking turns where it's like I'm able to do this, and spend a cube off this card that I charged earlier to throw all of this through this thing that's gonna 6 times let me, clear out, put cubes on the threats of the city, or convert something into victory points. And with those being completely different every game, and I have the Ladies of Troyes expansion that doubled the amount of activity cards, in addition to adding some other little modules that I enjoy playing with, I just Love the puzzle it presents. Loves how it's so different every time you play. And it plays in, 90 minutes or less. So it does it without being kind of one of the longer strategy games in my collection. Wow. I love some Troyes.
There you go. A game that Ryan loves significantly more than Daniel. Yes. His number 11 coming in, Troyes.
Yeah, so we think that's a pretty great collection of games. If any of those piqued your interest, we do have links down in the description below. We also recommend entering our giveaway. You can click that Google form. The secret word this time around is race. Enter that and submit it for a chance to win a game off of our top 50s. And we've got linked over here eventually the next video in the series, which will be our top 10 games. Otherwise, some other suggestions from YouTube, and we'll see you in the next one.